Hi, this is Mike Landers with L7 Marketing Solutions, and I'm here today to interview Mike Cohen, elder care attorney, in regards to questions concerning Medicaid planning and questions everybody has. Mike, thanks for taking the time to meet with us today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Mike, in simple terms, can you just define what Medicaid planning is?
Well, Medicaid planning can cover lots of different areas, but a lot of times when people do not have long-term care insurance in particular, they try to utilize the benefits that the government allows to plan to pay for cost of care.
Can you real briefly tell us what the difference between Medicaid and Medicare is?
Well, think of Medicare, especially in the area of long-term care. You think of Medicare as doctors and hospitals is what Medicare usually covers. If you do have a 3-day hospitalization stay, it'll cover the first 20 days of long-term care. And up to an additional 80 days of copay if you have a Medicare supplement. But that's it. Whereas Medicaid, which is another governmental program, is means tested. With Medicare, you pay into the system, and Medicaid, it's a means tested program which entitles to certain people to benefits such as nursing home costs, which will be paid by the government.
When should someone start planning if they do need Medicaid?
Well, of course, it depends on the situation. Some people, the one thing is we don't know if somebody has long-term care insurance or not. If they have adequate long-term care insurance, or if they're multimillionaires, then they may not ever need to consider Medicaid planning at all. But on the other hand, if they cannot qualify for long-term care insurance, in other words, if there's underwriting issues or if they just simply can't afford it, then they ought to consider Medicaid.
One of the questions I get a lot is what costs are usually associated with Medicaid planning. Can you expand on that?
Are you talking about from a legal standpoint side or the nursing home standpoint? Or
primarily usually the legal costs associated with trying to do a full Medicaid plan.
Well, there's different things that are involved, and it really depends on the situation. Some people have very limited assets, and so obviously. If there's very little activity, then their costs are going to be a lot less than the person that has $750,000 that they have to protect that has lots of different types of assets. So it's just going to depend. But anybody, and it also depends on things like, do you have a home? Because you have to protect that home. So if somebody even with a simple estate, a very nominal amount, but has a home, we have to do something to protect that home from the claim of the state.
What types of legal documents might be used when you do Medicaid planning, just briefly?
Well, one of the things we just mentioned was regarding estate recovery to plan to preserve the home. So often we'll either do different types of deeds or we'll do different types of wills. A lot of times people have an I love you will, all to my spouse and then to the children, or they may have a living trust. And a lot of times those things may be good for estate planning normally, but if they don't have long-term care insurance, it may not be in their best interest. So we often have to revise their will, or we'll have to do different things to protect the assets from claims of the state.
Can you explain some of the problems with gifting assets as it applies to Medicaid?
Well, it's one of the most commonly confused things. A lot of people think, my accountant told me I could always give away $13,000 a year and no problem per person, and that's for IRS purposes. But for Medicaid planning purposes, there's a 5-year look-back period. In other words, at least on most Medicaid programs, there are a couple that do not have a look-back period. But generally, if you make a gift, or anything that's for less than fair market value, then it's presumed that you did it on purpose to get eligible for Medicaid. So they penalize you if you do apply within 5 years if there has been some sort of uncompensated transfer.
If a person is receiving Medicaid and dies, what will the state of Texas do?
Well, if it depends on the situation, there are some exemptions, but if you have certain non-countable resources like your home or a car or perhaps a business or a family farm, then there are different things you could do to prevent the claim of the state. The state could come back after those non-countable resources, especially if you're single, to reimburse the state for the benefits that have been advanced. So we try to plan to avoid the claims of the state.
You mentioned the 5-year look-back rule. Can somebody that has made gifts, as an example, 3 years go ahead and start planning for Medicaid even if the look-back rule applies?
Of course, yes. There's different strategies that you could use, and just because there's a 5-year look-back period doesn't mean there's a 5-year penalty period. You look to see how much has been given, and then we try to see what we could do to reduce the penalty if nothing else.
If a spouse is in a nursing home and needs Medicaid, what planning can the well spouse at home do?
Well, often there's lots of different things you could do, and one of the things is we could take advantage of certain laws to maybe keep all the assets. So in other words, you have the husband that goes to the nursing home, has Alzheimer's, and the wife is at home. Particularly if their income is lower, then you could often protect hundreds of thousands of dollars and still get Medicaid. A lot of people think that just because you have Medicaid that you have to have nothing. They think it's a welfare program. Well, originally it was. But what the Congress did was they legislated in certain laws which made it no longer a welfare or it is means tested, but it's no longer a welfare program. It's no longer for just the poor, because like on a situation like you just mentioned, you could often protect hundreds of thousands, and most people don't think that that's the case. And even on a single person situation, you could have up to a $500,000 home. It doesn't count. And I don't think of most poor people having a $500,000 home. And if you're married, there's not even a limit. So I don't consider that as a welfare program anymore.
Does Medicaid pay for care at home or assisted living?
There are different programs for both at home and assisted living. The amount of assets that generally could be kept, however, is lower normally than it is for if you go into a nursing home. But there are different programs. There's more than one, and they have different rules. So the rules on assets are a little bit different. It's actually even on the gifting, on staying at home, there are different programs. And one of them, for example, has no look-back period, and others do. And so there's about 40 different Medicaid programs, and you have to kind of know the different rules for each program.
Mike, with so many problems with trying to apply for Medicaid, what kind of mistakes do you see most people make when they try to do that themselves?
Well, it happens all the time. I see a lot of bad things. So, for example, they think that they have to have zero assets, so somebody may sell their home just to reduce to get down to pay for the cost of care. We could have protected that home. I had one where just last week where the nursing home tried to help out the client, and they had the best of intentions. They applied last December. They thought, well, gee, there's no assets at all. There was just a little bitty, they told them, okay, just buy a couple pre-need funerals and you'll be okay. And they did it wrong. They also didn't take in consideration there was a little bitty $2,000 life insurance policy. So they applied in December, and guess what? They had ineligibility for all those months. So that was a $50,000 error on a estate that had less than $3,000.
Wow. Mike, I appreciate you sharing your information with us today. Are there any final thoughts you could provide in regards to Medicaid planning and why it's so important to take the correct action and hire an elder care attorney?
Well, I think like on anything, I don't recommend people do surgery on themselves. I recommend if you're sick, go to the doctor. If you have some different legal needs, and I don't know if that person does or doesn't, but at least they go in and try to at least find out what their situation is, and is there a need, and is there something that can be done to put themselves in the best possible position. Whether they need Medicaid or not, the other issue is that person going to be disabled? You should take care of things while you're okay and not wait until it's too late.
Mike, I thank you for your time today, and anybody that would like to contact Mike, they can go to www.dallaselderlawyer.com and get a hold of Mike and get more information, and we look forward to doing more interviews with Mike in the future. Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.